let me make really clear that this first drawing I'm not doing as a serious drawing. I'm doing it as a teaching device where I deliberately use certain characteristics of drawing that I often see so that I can contrast those characteristics with ones that I think are more helpful for realism with the second drawing. And at the end, we'll compare these two drawings side by side. So make sure you catch that comparison at the end, even if you don't watch all of the second example. But let me teach now by showing you how I would draw this rock. And notice firstly how I'm avoiding outlining the edges. When we look at this rock, very few of the edges are what you'd call sharp. I'm just sticking my finger on there to show what I'm looking at the moment, so you can orient the marks I'm making with what's in the reference. But there are very few actually hard edges. There are some that are almost hard, there are some that are kind of 50-50, and there are some which are very really more gentle curves than anything sharp. And yet there are shadows being cast to different degrees over much of this, particularly that right-hand side. The sun is in the upper left of the picture coming down on this rock, if that helps you just to see the shade that's on this rock. Shade is where the light doesn't reach part of an object because of where the sun is and the shape of the object. Shadow is cast by the object onto another object. So there's only a very little bit of shadow registered here because the sun is almost overhead. So notice I've resisted the urge to start drawing a lot of lines, and instead I've put a series of dots because that keeps my options open to work out how I'm going to create the feel of the edge that I want. Because these edges aren't a sharp edge when we look at them. They're actually, even the sharpish ones, have a rounded feel. And that comes from the fact that this rock was made of sandstone and the way it's broken and possibly has been weathered. And so if this is going to have the feel of a natural rock, then the edges are going to be really important. And also the lights and darks, the values that are cast. And they, in a rock, can become quite complex. And this is where I don't feel the need to be brutally copying the exact shapes and forms and angles of the reference, though I do try to approximately use it because I find I get more interesting, more varied results when I do. And I'm also going to make a few adjustments to my values, my lights and darks, in the end, according to what I think will bring out my drawing best. Now you're watching this at a bit less than double speed. I've got a couple of minutes in the middle where I cut back to actual drawing speed so you can see what that looks like. And I'll try and pay attention and recognize when those 2 minutes, maybe it's a minute and a half, start. Please hit the like button if you're finding this interesting, if you're finding this helpful, and if you like this one version and a second version video approach, please let me know that in the comment as well. But these rocks are a great way to not just practice, but to refine our skill in edges and values, and therefore hatching. When we talk about values with a fine liner, we're talking about hatching. And the hatching marks I've put on so far are just ones to help me start to think what's happening. I know I'm going to do a lot more layering on this because basically all of that shape on the right hand side, if you forget the three-dimensional form and just look at it as a flat shape, there's sort of a triangular shape, that's the end, and that's all shaded to some degree. And so I'm going to want to try and capture that sense, because that's a very strong statement as to the overall shape of the rock and where the sun is. But while there are parts that are shaded, there are parts that are more shaded than other parts relatively close together because the faces of this rock, there are lots of faces to the rock where the rock shifts slightly, where it curves in, and they attract or reflect light differently, which creates different lights and darks. Now, with this rock, there's also the added complication of the color, the local color of the rock, the color of the surface. So on that lower band, on the lower right-hand side, there are some lighter patches where the staining of the weathering, for one reason or another, has been rubbed off. I suspect it's when a front-end loader placed this rock on top of another rock at the entrance to a park nearby. So we're getting close to the actual time. You can see what I'm doing now. I'm trying to work over the whole drawing, going lighter rather than darker, because I want to be able to manipulate the darks at the end, because I can keep controlling those. And even on this relatively smooth and relatively pale side, there is still some ins and outs that cause shadow. And I don't want to have a big white expanse if it's not necessary, if it's not there. Even if it were there, I may put a few very minor variations onto the plane, onto the flatness of the plane, just for interest. On top, the sun's coming straight down and it is quite smooth. So there's going to be very little on the top. Now, I've moved into real drawing time now. So this is my actual drawing speed. So you can see it's fairly brisk, but there are a lot of lines happening here. This drawing, this one, took me a fraction over 20 minutes to do in real time. Now, the angle of the lines, of the hatching lines, is really important because the angles do suggest form. And therefore, we might as well use the fact that the direction of our line suggests what's happening on the surface in relation to us, whether the surface is moving towards us, away from us, sloping this way or that way, or curving. We do want to use the fact that that's the impression we get with our hatching to not just create a sense of light and dark, but also to create a sense of the surface direction. And included in that is how sharp or not sharp the edges are. So if we look at the lower right section, we can see there's an edge that's a bit of a curve that's quite sharp. It's probably the sharpest edge on the whole rock, where at some stage a long time ago the rock has fallen and it's chipped off, it's cracked off, and there was probably a layer of quite hard rock just on that edge that cracked into a hard edge. I haven't made it as round as it really is in the reference in my drawing yet, but I do that. I do make that change a bit later to make an adjustment to make the rock feel a bit more interesting. But for now, you see, I'm trying to work out the direction of my lines for the surface, for the direction of the surfaces, the planes, more than anything else. Now what I'm doing is I'm doing a light hatching over the whole thing, because I want this whole side to be darker relative to how I've got it now. I want what looks darkest to be darkest at the end. I want what's lightest to look lightest at the end, but I want the whole thing to be darker. And I want it to be darker again than this, but now I'll refine some other things, and then I'll come back with that one directional hatching over the whole thing, regardless of the direction of the hatch lines underneath. Dots stippling can be great with rocks because they indicate little tiny ins and outs that affect the light reflection. And with sandstone, of course, as this is the wonderful Sydney sandstone that we have ringing around the city and underneath it, with sandstone, it's particularly suitable for reflecting the actual surface material and therefore the surface as well. Of course, we can overdo it as well, and we need to make sure we don't fill in all of our blank bit of paper. And in a moment, of course, we'll compare this with the first one, and I'll highlight the different technique elements. It's not a case of saying this is good or this is bad. It's saying if your drawings look like the first one and you'd rather they look like the second one, what are the drawing techniques that you could adapt or start to use from scratch that you're not using in the first one. And that's what it's all about. There is no right way to learn to draw. I say this endlessly. There is no right way to learn to draw. The right way to learn to draw is the way that will let you produce the drawings that you want to be able to draw. If you want to draw in pencil, this isn't the best way. Some of these things overlap with pencil, but pencil has more possibilities that, well, not more, but it has ones that are different to pen. And therefore you need to be working on those as well. You have options beyond just line in pencil. You have edge and smudging and all that sort of stuff. So the right way to draw is the one that will produce the sorts of drawings that you want to be able to draw. One thing we have to get over as well, and please hit the like button if you didn't already, and if you've got to here and you haven't subscribed to my channel, why not? I draw a range of subjects, but particularly natural bushland scenes, rocks, subjects, views, trees, all sorts of things. As well as architectural subjects, whether it's streetscapes as a whole, or whether it's individual buildings, or sometimes just individual architectural elements. So now I'm trying to darken the whole thing. I'm coming to an end in my mind. Coming to an end, and now I'm actually doing some cross-hatching in the other direction because of this triangular section that's darker. The left lower half of it is darker than the right upper section of it. And so I'm again trying to get that left-hand lower section relatively darker to the rest of it. So I need to do some more hatching over everything so that the values already there become relatively darker. And so if I start by hatching where the actual directional changes and the planes and things that are important to give a sense of the three-dimensional form, if I do that first, then I can do this generalized hatching over the whole thing. And you'll notice I do the generalized hatching to darken the whole thing lightly, very lightly and close together, so that those lines don't hide the lines underneath, because the lines underneath suggest the direction of the planes of the rock, and also the quality of the edges, sharp or not sharp. You can see I've increased that curve in that section down there. So here we have it. Let's compare the two side by side. As I said, not the first as a serious drawing, but as a means of showing contrast with ways that this could be drawn with ways that I have drawn it. So you can see there was an immediate outlining, a presumption that, well, we start by outlining the big shapes and then we fill in the detail. Yet we don't know enough usually at the start, I think, to do that confidently. And then we've drawn lines for the edges as if all the edges were the same. We've also done them before we've had enough careful observation to clearly see how they fit in, to see how they work. So that's a problem as well. I did quite a bit of adjustment of my planes when I was doing the dotted lines. It was easy to adjust, and the dots that weren't in the end used are hidden in the overall surface texture. So it's the way I've done it in the second way is also a way of keeping our options open while we work out exactly what is where on our paper, because every mark that we put will be there at the end. So we want to learn a technique that will put marks on the paper that we can live with at any stage of our drawing, and I find dots are great for that. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Rocks are usually a support act in a larger scene, but we still want to draw them well. And they're also a great way of coming to understand and work on how we can best create the effect of rocks, of edges, and of values, and of three-dimensional form. They require a lot of skill, and therefore they're a very valuable subject to draw to learn those skills. But in the end, whatever you draw, however you draw it, whichever way you want to draw it, and certainly however our drawings turn out, let's make sure we have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.